Now, patient staff and displaced people have been streaming out of Gaza's biggest hospital, leaving behind a few doctors to care for the patients who cannot be moved. Doctors and health officials say Israel ordered them to evacuate, but the military, which is searching Al-Shifa for evidence of a Hamas command centre, says it was asked to help people leave. The army also says it's investigating the bombing of a UN-run school in the Jabalia refugee camp, which reportedly killed dozens of people who were sheltering there. And in the south, airstrikes have hit residential blocks in Khan Yunis, where much of Gaza's population is sheltering, just as Israel tells people there to relocate west. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says more than 12,000 people have now been killed in the Gaza Strip. 5,000 of them are children. Israel launched its operation to destroy Hamas, which many countries have designated a terrorist organisation, after it attacked Israel 6 weeks ago, killing 1,200 people and taking around 240 people hostage. Our foreign affairs correspondent, Secunda Kamani, joins us now from Tel Aviv, where family members of Israeli hostages are gathering for another protest. Secunda.
Well, Jackie, behind me, a large rally in solidarity with the Israeli hostages is getting underway. But before we get on to that, as you say, it's been a particularly gruesome day in Gaza, with footage emerging of what the Hamas-run health ministry there described as the aftermath of an Israeli bombing on a UN school, killing more than 50 people. Now, footage that we can see from there shows that there are bodies scattered right across the building. Many people who were displaced from their homes would have been sheltering there. The Israeli army has said that it's investigating the reports. We do know that UN schools in Gaza have been hit on multiple occasions during this conflict. The UN officials have repeated calls for a humanitarian ceasefire. As for the situation in Al-Shifa hospital, which we've been doing so much reporting on, it's been the focus of so much attention this week. Well, doctors there say they were given just 1 hour to evacuate all but the most critically injured patients by Israeli soldiers. A local journalist who was there filmed this footage of people frantically trying to move towards the south of Gaza. Apparently only just over 100 patients and medical staff now remain on the site, including, it's believed, those around 30 premature babies, those desperately vulnerable babies we saw footage of earlier this week. But it's been very difficult to get in contact with anyone from Al-Shifa hospital. The Israelis deny that they gave an evacuation order, saying they just facilitated people leaving who wanted to leave. But they've also made clear that they're extending the areas of their military operation, the assault that they're launching. So really, rather than pulling back, they're intensifying their fighting.
And amid these devastating strikes in Gaza, what news of the Israeli hostages being held there?
Well, the families of the hostages are desperate for any kind of news. They were hoping to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It seems that he's refused. They have met a number of other senior ministers instead. We spent the day with them as they reached Jerusalem, the culmination of a march they began from here, Tel Aviv, earlier this week.
Bring them home now.
Bring them home now. It's a chant resounding across Israel.
Bring them home now.
Sons, daughters, mothers, fathers of the more than 200 hostages abducted to Gaza.
7 of my family members have been kidnapped. My mother, my sister and her husband, my 8-year-old nephew Navet, and my 3-year-old niece Yael, my aunt Sharon and her 12-year-old daughter Noam have all been kidnapped and have been in Gaza for over 43 days. And 3 of my family members have been murdered.
You're going to the Prime Minister's office today. What's the main message you're carrying to him?
We keep hearing from news in Israel and in the world about deals, and they're gonna do this and they're gonna do that. We want to hear from the people in charge. Why is my family not here? Why are the families not here?
The march from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem along the highway has drawn large crowds in a country still racked by the trauma of the October the 7th attack.
Everyone here is united in wanting to see the hostages return home safely. Some are growing increasingly vocal in their criticism of the government. There's a building pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu to make some kind of deal. But there's also a lot of anger being directed towards the United Nations, towards the Red Cross, who people here accuse of not having done enough.
Red Cross, do your job! Red Cross, do your job! Red Cross, do your job!
We're frustrated from the world out there who doesn't scream, who doesn't understand our side. We're frustrated that we feel alone in this situation.
15-year-old Daphne and 8-year-old Ella. Carefree, loving sisters.
Talk with your country.
Last month, Hamas gunmen live-streamed the moment they invaded their father's home near the border with Gaza. The militants filmed them, terrified and helpless. Later killing the girl's father, stepmother and stepbrother, before releasing a photo of the two young girls inside Gaza. Daphne and Ella's mother is living a nightmare.
It's your daughter's clothes?
For normal, I sleep with my little girl, Ella. My head, it's full of, it's all the time, it's like a carousel.
Yeah, carousel.
Yes, it's all the time. I feel angry, I want to eat, but I can't to eat. I want to sleep, but I can't to sleep.
כי אנחנו 5 ימים צועדים ברחבי ישראל.
In Jerusalem, the crowd arrives outside the Prime Minister's office. This is not a movement calling for a ceasefire. But this week, 3 hostages have been reported dead in Gaza. Dozens of families, much of this country, wants to know what's being done for those who are still missing.
Secunda Kamani there. Well, let's get more on the situation in and around Khan Yunis in the south, where Israel has bombed residential blocks, even as it told people there to move west to safety. Gazan health officials say at least 26 people were killed when 2 apartments were struck overnight, while a further 15 people were killed in a strike on a house to the west of the city this afternoon. That's according to witnesses and medics quoted by the Reuters news agency. Now, Youssef Hamash is a filmmaker and advocacy officer for the Norwegian Refugee Council, who's been sending us reports from Gaza. He moved his family south to Khan Yunis early in the war, as Israel advised. I spoke to him earlier and asked him to describe the situation there now.
Situation is unpredictable. You don't know what's going on around you, and there is no certainty about what's going to happen the next minute, because there is no difference wherever you are in Gaza in general. But again, you cannot compare it to what's going on in the northern part and Gaza City. So in Khan Yunis, if I want to focus here, it's mainly about the humanitarian situation here, because there is lack of water, lack of food supplies. If you go to any market, you won't find anything. We have to stand in lines for everything, literally. We have to spend hours in front of bakeries or getting even drinkable water, and it became less and less because there is no fuel also to recycle the water that be drinkable. And now with every day, thousands of people who are fleeing more and more from the north and Gaza City towards the south, and there is no space for anyone.
Hundreds of thousands of people fled to Khan Yunis from the north. They're now among huge swathes of people who are being told by the Israeli Defense Force that they should flee again to the west. I mean, there's a sort of domino effect, isn't there? Huge numbers of people being asked, being ordered, if you like, to squeeze into smaller and smaller places.
So unfortunately, that was really shocking when we saw these leaflets have been dropped out by the Israelis airplanes, when they dropped these leaflets and informing people who lived in the eastern part of Khan Yunis, and they asked them all to move toward the western part of Khan Yunis, which already it's full. And the most warning thing is that in a few days we'll be in the winter. and there is no shelters. There is nothing to cover their heads from the rain, and also with the spreading of the disease because of the lack of hygiene and water to wash and clean and all of that.
So for exactly the reasons that you've outlined, do you think people will take what we have to accept as a very risky decision to stay where they are?
Yeah, and this is a really hard decision. And again, there is nothing worse than fleeing your house. And these people have seen what people have suffered when they fled to Khan Yunis.
I mean, you're a father yourself, and as you've said, you've taken that decision about whether to flee or stay already a number of times. What do you think you will do this time?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm trying to not think about that because it's already enough. And if you go and see by your own eyes what people are facing and seeing on the places that they are asking people to evacuate for, this is a really hard decision. And for me, I don't want to make it, but I think I believe I'll be forced to it.
Yusuf Hamash, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you.